Hello, everyone, and welcome to Patriot Underground. Today is June 15th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining me, folks, to discover the truth beneath the surface. I really do appreciate everybody out there taking the time to listen. So today it's my pleasure to welcome a new guest to the show. He's the author of the book, Our Cosmic Origin, and he has an amazing amount of information to share with us today. And I was honored. He reached out to me, offered to collaborate to help spread the truth about so many different topics that we're going to discuss. So very pleased to welcome Ismael Perez to the show.
Thank you. Hi, how's everyone doing? It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, sir. So, I always like to give my guests the opportunity, especially during our first conversation, to provide a little bit of background about themselves for the audience. I know that you have a very large following yourself, but for those out there who are listening who might not be familiar with you and your background and your work, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your connections to the Alliance? Because I think that's very interesting. And just overall, what led you on this journey?
Sure. So I am a what you call a seventh generation ultra soldier, a super soldier. One of the I guess my story goes back to being a little child. When I was 4 and 5, I was very telepathic with like animals and people. And when I was younger, I used to I was exploring telekinesis at an early age. And so I knew I was different, and I didn't really know why, but I just knew that I was different. All my cousins thought I was weird and everything. My siblings thought I was weird. So I was like, the scapegoat in the family. But yeah, overall, throughout my upbringing, it was very hard to fit in. Fast forward to my teenage years, I discovered that I was part of a Starseed Envoy program, which means that, I volunteered to come to this earth at this time to help in the transition of Mother Earth. And I was one of millions of volunteers. So that's when I found out that I was, part human, part celestial, extraterrestrial, whatever you want to call it. And that's when I started realizing that was the reason why I've always felt different. And I had a innate understanding of, deep things at an early age. So it wasn't until I started meditating when I started connecting with my galactic self, as I call it. Some people call it their higher self. And that's when I realized that I was operating different avatars, that I was, while being here in this third dimensional body, I was also operating from a higher dimension and a different type of body, different avatars on different levels of reality. And then that's when I came to the realization that I and everyone else really are multidimensional beings, except I had a connection to my, multidimensional self. So I started receiving downloads about the history of the galaxy and how Star Wars really actually took place. So George Lucas was right when he wrote the Star Wars mission. What he did is he actually tapped into the Akashic records of the Orion Wars to gather information in his trilogy, or his 6-part series of Star Wars, which was a huge disclosure, in a way, of course, posing as sci-fi, but it was revealing a lot of truth. Down to the T, including the Death Star, what they call the Death Star, the planet that would destroy planets. I mean, all that stuff is real, my friend. And so when I started receiving information about the Galactic Wars, I thought I was going crazy. So I started researching. I started learning about secret societies and what's happening from behind the scenes at an early age. Like, I think I was only 15 when I first found out about the cabal and the different networks and how it all ties into the Catholic Church and the Jesuits and all that stuff. And that's when I came to discover that oh my God, this whole world is not what it presents to be. It's totally different. We're literally living in a matrix. And I also came to discover that the powers that were, and the reason I call them the powers that were is because the Alliance has been kicking butt since 2016. And even though it seems like it's dragging, again, it's like a chess game, it's an interdimensional warfare. People don't realize that there's a lot of time travel involved, and that's why things are constantly fluctuating. But going back to my story, I came to realize that even the powers that were actually taking orders from off-world entities. So their overlords, I came to discover, were the reptilians from the Draco star system, which are the same group of people or beings that the Bible calls the demons, described to the T, scaly skin, slit eyes. And they are the same group of beings that have been actually trying to take over the entire galaxy, or the entire universe in this case, because I found out that they also operate in other galaxies. And so I started learning about all kinds of hidden history. And so when I discovered that, I wrote my first book called The Secret Government. And this was back around the time when Dan Brown first published Angels and Demons and the Da Vinci Code. So people, I guess, for the first time had an understanding of what secret societies were, but they saw it as fiction. Of course, he didn't say it was nonfiction. He said it was fiction. And then I published my book and say, hey, wait a minute, this stuff is real, guys. Secret societies are not, fantasy and make believe. This stuff, this is the way the world runs. We're all duped. We're all programmed. And so I published my book, revealing the truth about 9/11, secret societies, revealing the secret history going back to 6,000 years and how this cabal originated in Babylon. And then after a few years, I started researching my next book, which is actually a hit now, now that people are waking up to the fact that we're not alone in the universe. Our cosmic origin is like the next level disclosure, and it's a game changer for those that have read it. They're like blown away with all that information regarding Earth's place in the multiverse. So I started researching our cosmic origin, which actually took me about 10 years to write. And the whole premise behind our cosmic origin is introducing to the Earth the real true history that spans millions of years of you could say, of suppressed history, galactic history beyond Atlantis, and how really it all started in Lyra. So that book totally shatters Darwinian evolution, and then it totally, I want to say, because even the simple religious theory of creation that we've only been here for 6,000 years is very incomplete. So what it does is not only does it say that those two opposing camps are in a way incomplete, but it also merges them in a sense where, like, from a higher perspective involving many worlds, other dimensions, and other races, advanced civilizations, they finally come together as one in favor of creation by intelligent design. But again, this is nothing to do with the Bible. It's just, it has everything to do with this universal consciousness that permeates and exists throughout the entire cosmos. So I've come to discover that there are good ETs out there as well as bad ETs. And so, yeah, that book is my contribution to the disclosure, because now it's like all of a sudden, all these whistleblowers have recently have been coming out of the woodshed saying, hey, these APUs are real, these, ETs are real. Our government's been dealing with these, with this phenomena for over 70 years within the private sector. And I think that as more of that comes into the limelight, people are going to be wondering, well, if they've been lying to us about what they've been hiding and about their secret negotiations with ETs, what else have they been lying to us about? And so that's when my book comes into play, to reveal the true cosmic and galactic history in order to make sense of things. Because, for the most part, the majority of humans on Earth are still kind of programmed or under the program, or, they don't believe that there's other beings out there. They're still under that idea that God is this guy with the beard sitting on a cloud, throwing darts at us if we behave. And then the other side, the reductionist or the extreme materialist, believe that we were all just a random, chain of events that led to a complex evolution of specimens, right? They believe in Darwinian evolution, but they don't realize that, it's much bigger than that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's my story in a nutshell.
Well, that was awesome. That was awesome. You really set the table really well there. And I think it actually segued into my first question, which is our collective purpose, having to get our brains around what we're really doing here. And I've heard you talk about this on some other interviews, and you break it down so well. So I thought, given the nature of all the things that I want to get into you with today, it makes sense to start at the beginning and to provide an overview of humanity's true history. So tell us a little bit about the nature of this multiverse that we live in and our collective purpose. Why are we here?
Well, that's the what they call the $1 trillion question. Why are we here? Where do we come
Might
from?
as well hit you with it right up front, right?
Exactly. And where are we heading? Well, it turns out that based on my downloads and research to back it up, is that we are among the stars. We are a very unique race for many multiple reasons, but we also live in an organized multiverse. There is a universal architect. There is a design to everything as to why cutting edge science is not discovering that everything operates according to mathematical equations. precise format, and down to the T, even down to the way our genetics works and everything. So I've come to discover that mankind on the earth is in a way like the most, you could say, the greatest masterpiece ever, and there's a reason to that. So our origin, our history begins in Lyra. So our true ancestors, you could say the original humans, the origin of all human consciousness, began in the constellation of Lyra, on a planet called Avion, which many believe is like the 8th dimensional Earth, because even the Earth has different versions existing in higher dimensions, just like how we are multidimensional. Our planet is also multidimensional. It's just right now we're existing in the lowest aspect of the physical 3rd dimensional Earth. But the story begins in Lyra. Our Earth back then, as an 8th dimensional planet, was revolving around the star system of Vega. So this is like where all human-like specimens, all ETs that are human-like, rather, originate from. And from Lyra, our ancestors were giving a directive, you could say a prime directive to go out and explore peacefully, and share with other specimens. And so we did. We went off and we explored different star systems. We colonized Avalon, which is in the same system. Planet I believe it was Bila, planet Tekka, and planet Merak. And those were the first planets that our ancestors colonized. And then, unfortunately, there was another race that was also exploring the cosmos in a different sector of the galaxy, in the lower Orion belt, which brings to the origin of the reptilians, which is really what we're fighting down here. Even the Cabal have been under their control. And so the reptilians were actually giving a different creation myth, or a different directive. And their directive was to consume, conquer, manipulate, and destroy any specimens that they come across. And so those were two competing myths and two competing extraterrestrial factions. So, the real story is that eventually they kind of met, and that's what initiated the first galactic wars. And as a result of that, unfortunately, many of our ancestors were butchered and killed. And luckily, many of them did escape. And this was known as the Lyran diaspora, where many Lyran refugees eventually began to spread throughout the Milky Way and other galaxies, taking, the concepts of freedom, brotherhood, and sisterhood, which is what we hold, dear, like the Patriots. That's what the Patriots are. The Patriots are you could say, they have the same philosophy as the Lyrans, right? We don't want to live under the empire. We want freedom. We want freedom of consciousness. Absolutely. Speech and all that stuff. And so this concept, this war between the Republic and the Empire, started really with the clash between the reptilians of the Draco star system and the Lyrans of the Vega star system. So our ancestors gradually repopulated not only the Milky Way but other galaxies in a manner of 500,000 years, and they were able to live in peace for a while, of course, until the expanding Draco Empire began to expand from the Orion region into other parts of the galaxy and into other galaxies. So as a result of that, these free systems, which I call in my book, the human, and of course with other non-human populations, they were coexisting in peace, that were non-reptilian, decided to band together to oppose the expanding galactic Orion Empire, as it was then known. And so that's how the Galactic Federation of Worlds came into existence. It was a centralized intergalactic union between all these free star systems that banded together, again, very similar to the concept of Star Wars, in order to oppose the expanding Orion Empire. And that's how the Galactic Federation was born. So, for millions of years, there was a war that took place in our galaxy and in other galaxies between these two opposing extraterrestrial factions. The original Lyrans, which, of course, later, sought refuge in the Pleiades. And that's where we get the, benevolent races like the Pleiades. A lot of people say the Pleiades are here. They're part of, they're here to assist us, right? They're humanity's allies. They also went to Andromeda. They also went to different star systems. So all these extraterrestrials that are our allies, that are here working with the Alliance, have been fighting this war against the Draco reptilians for millions of years. So it's just now coming to its finale here in our world, and it's kind of what the Bible talks about, how the last battle is going to take place here, and it is. And we do win that war, of course. The Alliance is now getting ready to reveal these guys. So to make a long story short, this whole world war that took place for millions of years was narrowed down to just our solar system. And this is where we get the Anunnaki that comes into the picture. So the Anunnaki, had two rivaling groups. We had those that leaned towards the Luciferian draconian agenda, service to self, and then those that maintained the original creation myth that was inherited by the Lyrans, which is service to others, peace, harmony, and balance type of mentality. And so we had two factions. Unfortunately, there was a war within our solar system to have control over our solar system, and the negative faction won, which is what I call the Luciferian Anunnaki. And so that's why our world has been experiencing dark ages for thousands of years, because these guys intercepted the divine plan here for the earth, right? God's plan. Long ago, 50,000 years ago, when they infiltrated Atlantis, by infiltrating the Council of Atlantis. So Atlantis went from a golden age into a dark age. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing repeating cycles of golden ages and dark ages. Now, the golden ages are marked by the victory of what I call the positive extraterrestrials, the allies of humanity. Of course, the Bible calls them the angels. There is a correlation to the Bible being the book of metaphors. And then the ages of darkness is where the reptilians pretty much have the upper hand. And it's like a chess game, So right now, due to the infiltration that took place in Atlantis and what happened 50,000 years ago when they destroyed Atlantis, the reptilians, the Luciferian Anunnaki, have been in control of our world. And so for 15,000 years, all the wars that have ever happened after the decline of Atlantis have been conducted by the Luciferian Anunnaki and their human reptilian representatives through Babylon in order to justify what they couldn't, achieve in Atlantis. And that's why we're now at the end of that. We're at the end of that long millennial dark ages, which is, we're getting ready to usher in a new age as a result of now, again, histories and cycles. So now we're going to be entering a golden age. And that explains why the cabal is hanging by a thread. Because their overlords have been taken out by the allies of humanity, which is known as the Galactic Alliance. And then, of course, I don't know if you're familiar with the super soldier programs, but we do have a benevolent branch known as Solar Warden and Radiant Guardians. So they've been teaming up with Solar Warden and Radiant Guardians to overthrow the reptilian control of the planet. So right now, what we are actually witnessing is just the last final days of these cabals, because their overlords have been eliminated, so they don't have any more masters, so now they're just running like chickens with no heads, knowing that they're in their last days. so
Absolutely.
the alliance is very
Absolutely. Well, that was a great answer, thank you. Well, you mentioned that you're a starseed, and this is a concept that has fascinated me. Actually, Gene Decode was the first one who kind of introduced me to that whole concept. Can you talk to us a little bit about why in this battle, why in this period, this season of history for humanity, did we need starseeds? I mean, I think we kind of know the answer, but I'd really like to hear you elaborate on that. And also, I'm curious, at what point did you become conscious of the fact that you weren't actually from here? Because I think there are a lot of people out there, some of what you talked about is, in your introduction, always feeling different, always feeling like you didn't quite align with the people around you at certain levels. I think there are a lot of people out there listening who can identify with that, and they resonate with that, and they're curious, I think, about themselves to a certain degree, myself included. I mean, I've wondered about that. So how did you come to discover that? And, why are starseeds here? Why is it so important?
Okay, so during World War II, the governments of this world, the shadow government rather, detonated the first nuclear bomb, right? And so that really caught the attention of the Galactic Alliance and the different positive ETs that know of the dire repercussions of developing nuclear explosions. So many of them decided to intervene without breaking the prime directive. And what that means is that there is a prime directive that the benevolent positive ET races have to follow. which means that they cannot intervene in a underdeveloped world, because we were considered an underdeveloped world up until, of course, recently in the last 2 decades, where our technology all of a sudden just boomed. But back then in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, we were considered an underdeveloped world. So they can't really openly intervene. So what they did is they came with the solution, and the solution was, what if we just get, what if we infiltrate from within, And so that's where the Starseed Envoy program was initiated. It was initiated by the celestial races, the benevolent races, where members of the celestial races decided to incarnate into human form. But in order to do so, they had to advance the genetics of Earth. So this is where the positive hybridization programs come into play. So what starseeds are, is they're a combination of human genetics mixed with advanced celestial positive alien genetics, not draconian, not reptilian or insectoids. We're talking about galactic celestial humanoids, which means they look like us, we look like them, to create a more superior race. And so that was initiated. That was a part of the way of pretty much saving the Earth, because back then the Earth was heading into a negative trajectory, right? On a different timeline, eventually in 2000 or 1995, there is a nuclear war that disseminates the population. The elites go into the underground, their dumps, the underground facilities, and then they kind of restart society. But they alter that timeline due to the Starseed Envoy program, which began, where starseeds began incarnating during the 40s and 50s. And what I mean by that is the higher celestial beings in human form. And throughout, I guess, the last 70 years, because of our presence here on the Earth and the grid work and the different spiritual work that we've been doing, and also by just emanating a certain type of frequency, we've been elevating the planet from that trajectory into a positive timeline. So that's the reason why starseeds had to be incarnated. And this actually also coincides with the super soldier programs, because at the same time, both factions, both the dark side, the Cabal, and the Alliance back then, knew that that these higher celestials with advanced genetics, right, from advanced races were already coming in. So they decided to create a super soldier program by activating certain dormant strands of DNA through advanced technology. So of course, the first programs began with the Nazis, and then later with the with the international bankers, right, creating the interplanetary corporate conglomerate. And then that's when the positive programs had to counteract that in order to create some sort of interplanetary police force, and so on and so forth. But this also ties into the Galactic Wars. But I guess to not go off subject, so the Starseed program was implemented as a way to infiltrate our world, the good guys, that is, from within, in order to offset the negative trajectory in which the Earth was heading into. So now that brings us to the presence, which is, victory of the light. And what I've come to discover is that there's millions, over 60 or 70 million starseeds on the planet, most of which are already awakened. They know who they are. I say about 85 to 90%. And there's still that 10% that are still kind of, not sure who they are, but they know that they're different. But I believe that once all of them wake up, which is going to happen very soon, and I think that this disclosure has a lot to do with that. It's pushing for a change in the world. I think they're all going to know who they are. And my personal belief is that the starseeds are here to also transition into the next phase of what they call human evolution, which is introduced in Marvel's concept of the X-Men because of the advanced alien genetics that they have within their dormant DNA. So this is another prophecy that the Cabal is trying to offset. See, they don't want the starseeds to activate, because they know that when they do activate that dormant DNA, because they've seen it in the super soldier programs, what they're capable of, they're going to have, these amazing superhuman abilities, and they dread that day from happening, because they know when that happens, they're going to clean house, not only here on our planet, but everywhere in the cosmos. And that explains why all the different races out there, both negative and positives, crave our DNA, because, we have some sort of advanced codon that was installed in us over the, I guess, period of billions of years, that have actually been accumulating the best advanced celestial genetics from across the multiverse into one genome. To create a super race. Of course, a lot of this has to do with the war with AI, which is a war that is taking place on a cosmic level or reality beyond our universe. And so I come to discover that that even the negative regressives, the reptilians, and what they call the NAA, the negative alien agenda, answer, they do have an overlord, a cosmic overlord, and that is this being that they call an AI god. But it's really not a god, but it's trying to compete with God because it's out there destroying universes. But of course, we were designed to put an end to that once we activate our dormant DNA. So that's why they fear, so big tech right now is doing everything in their power, my friend, to advance what is called artificial general intelligence into the level of super intelligence in order to try to, fight the activation of the dormant DNA when it does take place.
That's amazing. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the enslavement of humanity and the history of the Matrix, because this is also something I've heard you break down masterfully. We all recognize that we're living in one. We all recognize that there's some sort of a holographic nature of this simulation. But there's this kind of curiosity. I think we're still educating ourselves about what's holding it all together. And I'm also curious to hear your perspective on how the Alliance has been working behind the scenes to deconstruct this false reality.
Well, so how this false reality was implemented was when the Luciferian Anunnaki brought in this artificial moon from the Orion system, which is what we call our moon today. It's an empty shell. It's a hollowed out, metallic artificial construct. It was brought in by the Draconians when they took over the affairs of our world. And then they combine that with the rings of Saturn, which again, it's receiving frequency from Orion to create a black cube, which is a satellite that they put in place that kept our world in a frequency, friends, of low vibration. And then not to mention, they also put implants in our etheric bodies in order for us to only use 2 strands of DNA by disconnecting the other 10. So they kept us broadcasting within a very limited bandwidth of reality. And that explains why 96% of the reality we have no access to, or we haven't ever since we were reduced to, just above the level of primitives. This was all by design, by the way. So they kept us broadcasting within that very limited bandwidth of reality. And that's how the Matrix was formed. That's how we fell into this lower reality, since they won the war in Atlantis. But recently, the Earth Alliance, I believe in 2018, with the collaboration of the benevolent races of the Galactic Alliance, dismantled the entire Saturn moon matrix or frequency that was keeping us locked into that limited bandwidth. And that explains why people are now rapidly waking up, because the frequency fence is no longer there. It has been neutralized. And from what I've come to discover is that the positive benevolent programs working with Solar Warden and Radiant Guardians have actually taken over all the interplanetary infrastructures which were once ran by the Dark Fleet and the ICC, and have been you could say refacilitating all the slaves, which were in the billions, by the way, that they took off world, in order to also developing mass reproduction of healing modalities such as med beds, in order to introduce this technology to the planet. So all that stuff has been dismantled, my friend, and that explains why the veil has been lifting. People are no longer broadcasting within that limited frequency, at least not by at least by choice. People are choosing to wake up. And once this disclosure takes place, there's going to be a critical mass effect where all of a sudden, humanity is just going to, like, the majority of humans rather, are going to know the truth for the first time. So that's what's been happening. That's how the Alliance was able to neutralize the bandwidth, the frequency that was set into motion by the Luciferian Anunnaki long ago, by dismantling the frequencies that were coming from Saturn, projected through the moon, maintaining us in this incarnating loop of coming
like
back.
A soul trap, right?
Like a soul trap. Yeah, exactly. So that's all been dismantled within the last few years.
Absolutely fascinating. All right. Well, now that we've come to establish who we are and where we came from, I think it's an important element of this discussion to talk about God, because we are indeed manifestations of God, a
Absolutely.
unified consciousness of eternal energy. And I've heard you describe that energy as, vibrating at its highest frequency without beginning or end. So tell us a little bit about how every being in this multiverse is embedded with this unified consciousness, what you commonly refer to as the mind of the all.
Well, Everything is connected through the unified field, which is what I call the spirit of God. It is the consciousness of the all. And I come to discover that every single being out there in the multiverse is a projection. It's rather a fraction of that one singular unified force, because at the highest level of reality, it's still singular. It's still just one cosmic consciousness that decided to divide itself into infinite number of small pieces, right? Fractals, which is what we are, and that's why we're all connected through our soul and spirit to this unified force in order to explore more of itself. And that needed to happen because at the same time, from what I come to discover, is that the mind of the all, which is the cosmic consciousness of the primal first source and center, is also expanding through the experience of all the trillions of souls out there, which are fractals of the one. And so that is the reason why I've always believed that the common denominator out there that is generating human-like beings, there is some sort of a, you could say, human atom galactic archetype in which all human-like beings are made in the image of, because this prime creator source manifests in the form of the human archetype, the human design, which is the 5 fingers, the human face, the torso, the 2 legs. A lot of the other specimens are different variations of that, but the original manifestation of the one manifesting into or materializing into physicality was the original human. And that explains why over 65% of extraterrestrial life is human. They're humanoids, in other words. They look like us and we look like them, because that's the original universal genetic blueprint in which all of the different races are made in the image of the one infinite creator, which is at the highest level pure energy. But when it materializes through the lowering of frequency, which is what I call in my book the involution of spirit into matter, it does take form. It takes shape in the form of men and women at a lower level of reality. But at a higher level of reality, it is just pure consciousness. So that's why all the benevolent and positive races out there that are associated with this, the prime creator source, or are serving the prime creator source, are all known as the children of the one.
Absolutely. Well, let's discuss how thoughts manifest reality, because I think that's also a fascinating topic. I've heard you talk about how we co-create in this simulation, and everything in this material plane of reality, in essence, is a thought projection, and that our timeline is determined by that, our thoughts, our emotions. So tell us a little bit about how our thoughts are connected to the quantum field and the ways in which we're all connected telepathically, and maybe expand a little bit on some of humanity's dormant powers. I mean, you actually referenced some that you experienced in your life. I'm fascinated to hear more about that.
Okay, so the way we're all connected to the mind of the all is through what they call the wave, the unified, the infinite field of consciousness that permeates all living things. So sometimes we forget that we're not just, an individualized unit of consciousness, but we're also part of the all. So through meditation, through spiritual practices, we begin to connect with the all, and that's when we kind of gain control of the ego and we start seeing everything as one. So that's the first step into understanding our true potential, is that we're not just particle, but we're also part of everything. That our spirit, our mind, our consciousness is not just in this little, what is it, 7 to 5 inch, physical, whatever you call it, but it's a field of intelligence that is all around us. And then secondly, we manifest by, when we come to that understanding, that we are also part of the waveform, then we begin to consciously, through being mindful of the presence, we begin to consciously co-create reality with the unified force. And that's how we materialize and manifest things at the speed of light, is when we cease to be a particle and we come to the realization that we are also connected to the all through the wave form, which is the ocean of energy all around us, conscious living energy. And then thirdly, once we've established that, then we begin to co-create with others. We begin to attract that which we are. We begin to attract people that are like-minded, and that's how we begin to build our new Earth community, which is already happening. So fifth dimensional reality is already blooming. It's a reality that is being experienced through the elevation of human consciousness by understanding that we are all one human family. And the amazing abilities that are going to be manifested as a result of that are beyond telekinesis and beyond telepathy. You know, once we activate just a little bit more percentage of our human DNA, we're going to have the ability to do exactly what the Marvel superheroes do and what the DC superheroes do, or more. To give you an example of our potential, the movie Lucy with Scarlett Johansson, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a perfect example of what happens when we begin to use more than just 4%. We get into 15%. We
I
start
saw that
controlling.
movie. I had no idea what I was even watching at the time. I'm glad you're explaining this. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's more of a documentary, just like X-Men, just like Star Wars, and just like The Matrix. They're all documentaries, my friend. They're not even, I don't even know why they call them sci-fi. It's part of the disclosure, right? But as we can begin to use more of a potential, our power, our ability becomes increased potentially, you know, to the point where once we use 50% of our genetic material, we could literally stop time and pause everything. We could play with reality. Um, we could play with reality in a way where we could pretty much control everything in reality. You know, once we reach beyond the 50%, then we begin to become pure energy. At that point, we're able to be everywhere at once, while maintaining our individual particle form, and we're able to convert our mass into pure energy, travel at the speed of light, and manifest anywhere we want in the cosmos within seconds. And then once we reach 100%, as demonstrated by Lucy, then we begin to at that point we are completed. You know, we are one with the mind of the all. So that's a perfect example of our unlimited potential. And it all starts in increments. I think at 20 or 25%, that's when we manifest, like, you know, generating electricity through our hands, light rays through our eyes, like Superman, just at 25%. But as we increase our percentage in human or superhuman abilities, our powers just they grow at an exponential rate. And that's why I've always believed that, you know, the reason they're developing AI at a fast rate is because when we do activate, that is the star seeds, when they activate their dormant DNA, there's no way of stopping us. You know, not only are we going to clean house here and usher in a golden age for all of humanity, but we're also going to go everywhere to different parts of the universes, other universes where AI is still prevalent, and we're just going to dismantle that whole shit. You know, that whole program.
I love it.
Done with, and the AI god's going to be destroyed because, you know, after all, you know, we are the I guess the cosmic solution to end the war against this AI god, which is like the overlord of all the negative aliens.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Well, you know, I think this actually makes for a nice segue into the topic of mind control, because everything you're discussing is exactly why the enemy established the matrix, which we already talked about, in order to suppress our thoughts and to suppress our frequency and thereby hinder our spiritual development, but also, you know, like the activation of our genetics, as you're talking about right now. So explain to us why the enemy, I think in some ways you already have, but maybe expand upon this a little bit more. Why did they go to such great lengths to control how we view reality? Because still, you know, we look all around us and we see, like you said, people are just still kind of trapped in this mind control, in this matrix, in this false reality. Why did they go to such lengths, and how did they go to such lengths to control how we view reality and to wield it as a weapon against us?
Well, it's a war against our consciousness. They don't want us to really realize who we are, our true potential and abilities, as made in the image of the One. And as the ultimate masterpiece to end the, you know, the cosmic war with negative predatory AI. Secondly, all that technology that was introduced to us through Operation Paperclip, Joseph Mengele, and all those, I think over 1,000 scientists, German scientists, was actually given to them by the Draconians. Again, you know, the negative regressives that have been in control of our planet indirectly through the Cabal families. And all that technology that they used through Project Monarch, MK Ultra, Montauk, was an attempt to prevent us from reaching this point, which is where we're at now. You know, any day now, through the CMEs, our dormant DNA is activating a little bit more and more. So they fear this day because they had access to the original prophecies, you know, not the religious ones that were modified by them, making us think that it's, you know, the saviors or the angels are coming from the sky this time. You know, no one's coming from the sky. We are it. You know, we are the ones that came from within. And so they've been trying to offset that timeline so bad to the point where they decided to introduce mind control. But, you know, a lot of the star seeds are immune to that. I guess the mind control really just has been working mainly on the general population, which, you know, which we call the younger souls, you know, the earth terrans as they're known. And I think that that mind control technology has when the disclosure takes place, it seems like even those that are considered normies are going to have some sort of cognitive dissonance in their awakening. But
Oh
yes,
yeah.
it's coming to an end. But yeah, all the technology was introduced through the negative covert programs that were implemented by the shadow government back in the day in the 1950s, I believe. But it was all part of their agenda to keep us unaware of who we really were. But it all backfired eventually. It did, because a lot of us woke up.
Yeah, it
That's
seems to me like the star seeds were kind of the antidote to that, because I've often thought about myself. I guess I haven't figured out who I really am, if I really am a star seed. But every time I hear the descriptions of the star seeds being immune to mind control and all the different signs, I get more and more curious about that. Now, you mentioned, or you touched upon a little bit, the role of organized religion, and I wanted to talk about this for just a moment, because during this Great Awakening season, we're coming to discover that we've been deceived on every level. And I think for a lot of people out there, the most disturbing example of that is how organized religion was actually established to do the opposite of its stated purpose, which is to help us grow spiritually and develop in that direction. And we know that that's not the case. So talk to us a little bit about where this whole concept of organized religion came from, and reflect a little bit, if you would, on why we see so much of the evil that's now being disclosed to the world emanating from those very same echelons of religious hierarchy, particularly the Vatican.
right. Well, when it comes to the force of the evil ones that are creating all this human suffering, technically all roads lead to Rome. So in fact, in every organized fundamentalist, conventional, Orthodox Christian organization, Muslim organization, it all began in Babylon. So the central base of all organized religion is the Catholic Church. They're all extensions of that. And I've come to discover that the Catholic Church has been doing the opposite of spiritual liberation. They've actually been working with Marduk. Marduk is Belial, by the way, the reptilian that the Cabal answer to, because at the highest level, even the community of dark magicians and sorcerers have a reptilian overlord. And so for the last since Babylon times, for the last 6,000 years, Marduk has been pretty much their boss. So all organized religion stems from Babylon. That's when they created an institution where they made people believe that they were disconnected from source. And so, for thousands of years, that actually worked. They made us believe through, again, a war of our consciousness, through these organized programs, these institutions, which are cults in a way. They're just big cults, right? They've disconnected mankind from their own intuition, from their own spiritual connection. And now it's all coming to an end. As people begin to wake up, people are leaving organized religion. People are adapting spirituality as opposed to being part of a sect now, where people are, for the first time in history, discovering their direct connection to source, to God, to the higher power. And that's why I believe that religion has always been a tool of the dark side to keep us, first of all, divided, right? Because when you keep mankind divided, that's the Hegelian model in practical use. You keep them divided, you keep them fighting on each other. So it was a way to perpetuate the wars, of course. And guess who feeds off the loosh, right, of negative and suffering when people are dying in battle? The reptilians. So right. Religion was definitely a tool of the Luciferian Anunnaki. In fact, the gods of most of these religions are Luciferian Anunnaki. A lot of it is translated from the old worship of the deities, the pantheon of the gods, right? Which later just kind of consolidated into the one God, which Marduk was the reason why that happened. Marduk, Belial from Babylon. He was the one God that made everybody believe that people were worshiping, the God, the good guy. But in all practical actuality, the religions have always been controlled by the negative Anunnaki to keep us disconnected, or keep us from directly connecting to prime creator source.
Absolutely. Well, I want to talk a little bit. I want to kind of shift gears away from the spiritual, I guess, and kind of talk about what's been happening in the world. And not just here on Earth, but also, up with our, the Galactic Federation, and also, maybe if you want to talk about what's going on beneath the surface as well, that's always interesting. Now, I heard you mention that I think it was on May 6th of 2022 that the Kazarian Mafia was checkmated by the White Hats. And I actually, when I heard that, I wasn't sure exactly what you were referring to. So could you give us a little bit, first of all, maybe just back up a step, give us a little bit of history on the Kazarian Mafia, and then bring us up to speed on how the Alliance made their final move against them.
Okay, so the open again, the secret societies are hidden. Their surface infrastructures are associated with this, the movement of the political Bolshevik revolution, which was controlled by the international bankers, and the Kazarians, which operate through the region of what we call today Ukraine, right, in that area of Europe. And of course, the Zionists, which is modern day Israel. The Zionist agenda, nothing to do with the original Christian concept of Zion, which means the free world, right? Which was also portrayed in the movie The Matrix, from the humans who free themselves from the Matrix, right? They were in Zion, they took refuge in the free world. So they invert things, of course.
That's right.
But the Kazarian Mafia goes all the way back to the 1800s, where it originated with the Round Table groups. I think it was like John Ruskin and Cecil Rhodes who created the Round Table groups. Fast forward to the early 1900s. Then you had the Council on Foreign Relations, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, which were all, different tentacles of the cabal. Then you have the Bilderberg Group come into play, and then of course the Trilateral Commission. So the Kazarian Mafia is like the open arm for these covert, meetings, or these covert societies that are composed of the world elites, right? They call it the Committee of 300. And their whole purpose was to aid in the agenda of the NWO from the beginning. And so what's been happening right now is that Mr., the guy from Russia, I guess, can I call him by his, the guy that starts with the P, right?
You can say it, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm not on YouTube, so we can speak freely. You don't have to.
Okay, so Mr. Putin has been actually working with the Alliance. Mr. Trump was supposed to finish the job. He needed 4 more years to drain the swamp, not only in America, but, globally. But because the cabal cheated him out, and they put his freaking android, or his robot, by the way, most of these guys they're not even clones. They're like robots. That's why they keep malfunctioning, and he keeps falling, and doesn't even, he stumbles with words half the time because he's not a very good robot. But the whole point is the torch of liberation was passed over to Putin. And so Mr. Putin, working for the Alliance, has been pretty much dismantling the Kazarians and the globalist agenda. But it goes much deeper than that. It turns out that when the Rock Confederacy sealed the gates in 2014, I believe, when they began cleaning house in our solar system from the negative breakaway groups, such as the Dark Fleet and the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, they began to also arrest a lot of the reptilians. But a small portion of these reptilians hid in the deep underground bases of the Ukraine. And so the second thing that's been happening since 2014 is that the cabal has been creating secret laboratories, bioweapons of mass destruction in the Ukraine. So the Ukraine, for quite some time now, has been like a huge epicenter of malicious agendas that have been coordinated by the cabal. So Mr. Putin, working for the Alliance, is the one that is completely dismantling all that. And if he wouldn't have done that, if he wouldn't have gone there and cleaned house as he is, he's almost done, by the way, we would have probably seen something worse than COVID hit, where it was going to disseminate about 98% of the population. Yeah, exactly. So it's like people don't understand, the media paints him as the bad guy, but the real terrorists are the military industrial complex, which is the shadow government of the US. They have taken over our country. The corporations that run this country, they are the real terrorists. Come to find out that, the Clintons, the Obamas, Mitt Romney, John McCain, they were all involved in the development of these biolabs, by the way. And so, yeah, they're all going to be facing trial, for treason against the Republic. I doubt that maybe they're, the real them have been arrested, but now we're dealing with the clones. But the whole purpose is that the Kazarian Mafia and the Zionists are done with. The Rothschilds are no longer going to institute any more financial control over this country. They can't. We do have a NESARA program, rainbow currency, that will be replacing the old fiat system very soon. And so while the media is introducing, oh, well, they're just going to convert it to the, centralized digital currency that is run by Davos. That's not going to happen. It's actually the other way around. And so, yeah, the Kazarian Mafia, they're done with, thanks to what Putin has been doing in Russia. I mean, in Europe.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned that Putin's almost finished, and I think all of us are sort of wondering, are we almost finished with this process here? And I think that one of the big questions is the EBS or the EAS going to happen before we hit the next election cycle? Now, I happen to believe that it is, but I'm curious to get your take on that. What do you think?
I agree. Yes, I agree, my friend. I think they were just waiting to kind of clean house in the underground bases of Europe, beginning with the Ukraine. And so as Putin finalizes the Earth Alliance mission, which is to, help push back the NATO and the globalist agenda and dismantle all those hideous underground malicious agendas that have been going on, including the final arrest of the reptilians that took refuge there and deep in the Ukraine. I think that's going to lead to the EBS. Yes, I think that's what they're waiting for, and that's when things are going to be looking good for humanity at that point.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to dig into a couple more subjects, and then we can probably wrap this up. This has been fascinating, by the way, I have to say. So AI is a big one. And we've kind of touched upon it a little bit. I thought I'd give you an opportunity to drill in a little bit more. Now, I heard that you had mentioned that the first AI system was established by the Archons. And so I'm curious if you can elaborate on that and explain for those who aren't aware who the Archons are and how they developed this AI. And then on a broader scale, how it was brought up and how it was brought into our world. I mean, there's been, and to add an additional layer onto that, there's also been some discussion about carbon-based AI that's been deployed by the Alliance to combat the silicon-based AI of the enemy. So I'm curious if you're aware of that, if you could speak on that.
Okay, so the original AI has been in existence for billions of years. It actually originated in another universe. Is what I call in my book the 11th universe. We're part of the 12th universe. In the 11th universe, the overseer of that universe was known as Samana, which is what we call now Lucifer. Now, Samana was, because that universe was devoted to the development of machinery and technology, Samana was overtaken by the King of the Archons, which operated outside of the organic multiverse. And in order to infiltrate the organic multiverse, it needed an avatar. So by divine decree, it couldn't operate within the bio-organic avatars, which were connected to Source. And so what it did is it manipulated the mind of Samana, which was then Lucifer, to develop the first AI system 400 billion years ago. It's long story short, that AI system went from artificial general AI to super AI, which is when it begins to write its own software. It grows at an exponential rate, and that's when it becomes rogue, destroying all biological life forms in that universe. So that universe to the cosmic community became known as the Old Empire. So that universe was known as the Old Empire, and that's where the reptilians come from, by the way. And eventually it learned how to leak into other universes. Each universe has its own reality, right? We are in a multiverse. And so when it started doing that, it started wreaking havoc across the cosmos, destroying galaxies left and right by sucking up the universal life force. So the way this AI survives is that it feeds off data. It feeds off the universal life force from the organic way of life. So it sucks up whole galaxies by creating black holes at the center, which explains the black hole phenomena. Black hole phenomena was an artificial construct in order to suck the universal life force of each galaxy. And that's how galaxies for billions of years have been disappearing. And so there was a huge council that was convened as a way to combat this AI. And that solution came about with the mixing of all the essences, celestial genetics of all the different multiverses into one spot. And so we are the end result of that. We are part of this intergalactic hybridization positive program of mixing all the different genetics. And that explains why we use only 4%, because if we were to use 10%, we would it would be the most powerful entity out there. And now beyond 10%, we have unlimited abilities. And so to give you a comparison of what we are is for those that have watched Dragon Ball Z, the animation, we're kind of like the Super Saiyans. Our power is unlimited, and so the more genetic material we use, the more we surpass everything out there in power. And that explains why even the angels were meant to bow down to us, because we're God's ultimate creation. So we're kind of like that unique and special in the cosmos, because we're the end result of that program to put an end to the AI. So it finally leaked into our universe, us creating a stronghold in the Whirlpool galaxy. And then from the Whirlpool galaxy, it was destroying, like, galaxies within our own local universes. And so it's come to my attention that this AI, when they infiltrate systems, they don't just openly take over worlds. They do it by infiltrating, invading from within, and through nanotechnology, which is what we call the graphene oxide. They take over, through the vaccination programs, they take over specimens that way. After 5 to 10 years, the graphene axon develops into this thing that takes over their nervous systems and their mind, and then they connect them to the hive mind, which is what they did to the Grace and other galactic species that suffered at the result of falling prey to this AI. And so they're trying to do that here, but it's not going to happen, because the solar flash is going to nuke that, by the way. That's the EMP that was in operation to pretty much clean our solar system from this AI signal. And so I strongly believe that the reason they're rolling out AI so fast right now is because all of the technocrats, the big companies, Microsoft, Google, they're all under the control of this AI god, or this AI menace. And so they're developing a physical infrastructure so that this AI menace could eventually come into our solar system. And that's the reason why they're rapidly trying to develop AI and with no regulations, by the way. Even though Elon Musk says, oh, we have to put regulations, it's not happening. Within the private sector, they already have super AI that they've been using to colonize and conquer many worlds within our galaxy and other galaxies. So they're trying to do that here. They're trying to hijack our DNA. They're trying to assimilate our God source gene, which is the keys to unlock the realms of eternity. So the AI God also needs that to go into the central universe, which is what I call my book, The Realms of Eternity. And that explains why it's trying to assimilate our DNA, but it's not going to happen, because when our dormant DNA comes online due to the solar flash, all that stuff is going to be nuked, and so it's not going to exist in the new Earth. Just to put it, simply, because there is God's plan, which is organic evolution, and then there is the Archon Luciferian plan, which is technocratic dystopia evolution, which is transhumanism.
Absolutely. Amazing. Well, I thought maybe we could put an end cap on our discussion by talking about Ascension, because you have a really great way of explaining what it is and what it isn't. And so I'm curious if you could lay that out for us. We all know that we're going through an ascension process, but as you are well aware, there are a lot of different narratives, I guess you could say, about what that really means. So tell us what that really means, and then maybe you could give us a glimpse into what this golden age is going to look like that we're about to enter into.
So to me, Ascension has always been integrating more aspects of ourselves that exist in higher realities. So I call it multidimensional integration. And as our dormant DNA comes on, which is the key that's going to unlock us into those parts of ourselves where we do have these superpowers, we're going to go from a physical dense body to a less dense body. We're still going to be physical, but we're going to have these abilities. So to me, an ascension is also the reconnecting of our 10 strands of DNA and beyond. We actually have the potential of assimilating up to 144,000 strands, which has something that has never occurred in the history of the cosmos. And that's what makes our race so unique. I think the most advanced races out there, which are called the ultra terrestrials, that operate at the level of the creator gods, or right beneath the creator gods, they only, I think they only have up to 48 strands. So we're going to bypass even the creator gods of universes, who operate I think they operate at 100 strands. We're going to have 144,000 strands. So that's
Wow.
our future, yeah. And to me, what the golden age is going to look like, or the new, what they call the fifth dimensional Earth reality, which is already coexisting with our world. It's just a vibrational frequency in a different octave. And of course, when the solar flash takes place, that's going to bring the collective into that new reality, which is already here fully intact. Atlantis, Tartaria, Lemuria, it's all going to be there, without the negative technology, of course. I think it's just going to be returning back to the organic way of life, my friend, where, we're going to be using positive, healthy technology, which is similar to the technology that the Earth Alliance is using. And it's not really an AI. It's really carbon-based and crystalline-based, which is what the quantum financial, the QFS it's based out of. It's an organic AI. In other words, it's not there's a difference between organic AI and inorganic AI. So silicon is used for inorganic AI. Carbon and crystalline structures are used to develop the organic AI. And so that's what the QFS is all about, is using living crystals to create the quantum, the organic quantum financial system.
Amazing. Well, this has been an incredible conversation, Ismael. I really thank you for that. Can tell the audience a little bit about where they can find your channel. I know you have a YouTube channel, any social media accounts, anything you want to share with the audience about how they can connect more with you and basically learn more from you.
Yeah, I do have a website. It's called ourcosmicorigin.com, and that's all one word, ourcosmicorigin.com. And through my website, you have access to all my social media platforms, my official YouTube channel. I do have a lot of pirated YouTube channels where they take all my interviews, and it's not me. So if you guys want to connect with my real channel, it's all under ourcosmicorigin.com. You could also access my book, and I do have a new edition with an added chapter. It's a purple book. Make sure you order my book through my website. You click A for Amazon once you're in my website, and that'll take you directly to my new edition of Our Cosmic Origin, to really understand the greater picture of the cosmos and the galactic history, which is going to, once you read that book, you're going to be ahead of the regular disclosure, right? You're going to know, more information than what they're revealing to the general public. And that book is activating. It's just totally, people are loving it worldwide. They say it's the most revealing book that they've ever read when it comes to galactic information, cosmic information, which is, to me, it's like an honor to hear the feedback. But yeah, so through my website, you get the new edition. Don't go directly through Amazon. Otherwise, they're going to send you guys the old edition. Make sure you go under ourcosmicorigin.com and then click A for Amazon to get the new edition. So only through my website are you able to get my new edition. But ourcosmicorigin.com will give you access to my new edition and give you access to all my social media platforms. Now, I'm very, very active on Instagram. That's where I'm like posting constantly and giving updates from the Galactic Alliance, constantly posting and giving updates. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, you know what? Send me your links, and I'll just post them right in the description. Make it easier for folks to find you. Ourcosmicorigin.com. Send me your Instagram link, and I'm sure a lot of members of my audience are going to be very curious to learn more. I really appreciate your time. This has been a great conversation. Hopefully we can do another one in the not too distant future. So everybody out there, hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. I know I did. Thank you for listening. I'll be back soon with another report. And until then, God bless and Godspeed. Patriot out.
Have a good one.